The first thing I wanted to sew for 2025 was something quilted, so I made this really cute quilted vest I've been seeing all over my feed. It has easy ties, so no zippers or buttons, and added ruffles for a super sweet look. And check out that perfectly poofed collar. I'm so proud I quilted the whole thing myself, and it's also fully lined, so no hemming. This project was so much fun, I had to make another one without the ruffles and ties, which I'll show more at the end, but let's get started with the tutorial. First, cut out all your pieces. When you're finished cutting, you'll have 2 sets of mirrored front pieces, 1 main and 1 lining, and 2 back pieces. I also cut oversized rectangles of batting for each so I could trim them later. I used this extra loft quilt batting. I think it's for a crib size quilt, but it was perfect for this project with some left over. You can also purchase quilt batting by the yard, but I just ran into the store for a quick grab and go. You'll also need 2 fabric ruffles and 1 batting ruffle piece, 2 fabric collar and 1 batting collar, and 3 tie pieces. Also, don't forget to cut out your notches. Before sewing, first we'll quilt. You can quilt the main fabric pieces to the batting any way you want and in any design. Some use heat erasable pens like these to mark the layout, and some use machine tools like this quilt bar that attaches to your walking foot as a guide between stitches. But since I'm using plaid fabric, I just marked every 3 inches horizontally and vertically and stitched along the lines. Once the quilting is all finished on the front and back main fabric pieces, you can trim the batting to the edge of the fabric all the way around. This is what my quilting looks like from the back. And you can also remove the quilting steps altogether if you get some pre-quilted fabric. I found this one at Joann's and it was pretty reasonable. Now we can start sewing the vest together. Place the 2 front pieces and back piece right sides together and sew along the shoulder seams. Press the seams open and then repeat that with the unquilted lining pieces. Now let's get the ties out of the way. Fold both short ends of the ties towards the wrong side of the fabric 1/2 inch and press. Then create a binding by folding it in half along the long edge, wrong sides together, press it, and then fold both raw edges in to meet the center crease. Fold it in half again and press the whole tie, and now sew 1/8 of an inch away from both long edges. Once all 3 ties are sewn, cut them in half so you have 6. Now place the ties along the edge of the front pieces. Place the first one 3/8 of an inch away from the top neckline corner. Make sure you don't pin the folded end, and the other ties will be pinned at the notches, and then baste all 6 ties in place. We can work on the collar next. Place the 2 fabric collar pieces right sides together, and then place the batting on the wrong side of one piece. Then sew along the curved edge. Trim the seam allowance to 1/8 of an inch and turn it right sides out. You can top stitch if you want, but I just left it. But you do want to baste the bottom edges together. Now we'll baste the collar to the vest. Again, starting 3/8 of an inch away from the corner of the neckline, pin the collar all the way around to the other corner, leaving a 3/8 inch space there too. Then you can baste it in place around the neckline. Let's start sewing the lining and main fabric together. Place the main fabric and lining vests right sides together along the front edge and neckline. Your straps and collar will be sandwiched in between. And then sew along one side of the front edge, around the neckline, and down the other front edge. Clip the corners and the curve and turn it right sides out. For the ruffles, you'll first cut the batting ruffle in half along the long side. Then place 1/2 along each fabric ruffle on the wrong side of the fabric and baste the curved edge in place. Then fold the other side of the fabric ruffle over the batting so the batting is enclosed inside the fabric, and run a gathering stitch along the curved edge. And then you'll gather the ruffles until they're half the length they started out. Now separate the main fabric from the lining, and you can then baste the ruffles to the arm curves between the notches on the main fabric only, right sides together. Make sure the lining is out of the way when you pin or clip the ruffles, and then just baste the ruffles in place. We're going to use the burrito roll method to enclose the ruffle. If you've never done it before, it can be intimidating, but just follow along and hopefully this will make it easier. First thing is to separate the main fabric from the lining on the left side. Just push the lining out of the way underneath the main fabric, but keep the main and lining together and lined up on the right side. Then start rolling the right side of the vest into a burrito roll. You'll eventually see the left side of the lining start peeking out as you go. Keep rolling until the burrito is sitting on top of the shoulder seam on the left side. You'll want it rolled up pretty tight and make sure that all the ties are out of the way. And then take the arm curve of the lining from underneath from the left side and fold it over the burrito and pin it to the main fabric arm curve on the left side, right sides together. Once the arm curve is pinned with the burrito roll in between, you can sew along the arm curve. Then you can pull the vest back out through one end so it's right sides out again. Now the ruffle is sewn in with no raw edges. Do the same thing on the right side, starting by separating the main fabric from the lining again and rolling the left side over. Now let's finish the side seams. With the vest laying quilted side up, take the back quilted piece and front quilted piece and place them right sides together. Match up the arm curve seams and then you'll sew down the side edge to the arm curve seam. Then you'll continue pinning down the edges of the lining below the arm curve seam and sew that edge too. Turn it right sides out and now you have a side seam. You can repeat that on the other side of the vest. To finish the bottom edge, fold the main fabric and lining back 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch towards the wrong side of the fabric and then place the folded edges together. Pin or clip all along the bottom of the vest. When you're finished, you can top stitch all along the bottom and front edges and under the collar. This top stitch will give the vest a finished look and also close up the bottom of the vest. All finished. I will say this vest is actually super warm and it pairs so well with the Moxie top. I used a mystery striped knit from Sew by Sew since I'm trying to incorporate more dead stock and recycled fabric in every project this year. I used the pre-quilted fabric for both layers in the second vest and it's really warm. I also added welt pockets, but you could also add the inseam pockets from one of my earlier videos. If you want a welt pocket tutorial, just let me know. They're so much easier to sew than they look. This vest will be the featured January sew-along in our sew-alongs group on Facebook if you want to try it with support from the amazing sewists in there. It'll start on January 13th and will be finished by the end of the week. Feel free to join us for sewing and prizes and get a jump start on sewing projects for 2025.